Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Let's Talk Shop. So the first episode got some really positive feedback, so yeah, I definitely thought I wanted to do another episode, and sort of throughout this series I'll just gauge the response on each episode just to see if you actually do want to hear me talk about anything and everything again, or whether you'd just prefer me to do some wood turning. But in this episode I wanted to talk about where I get my inspiration from, and then just let you know sort of more about me. So I thought on screen I'd display the one of the videos I made over Christmas, turning this piece of the year before last's Christmas tree, obviously into a project that will reveal itself later on in the video. But this is a real point for me. But this is the real thing for me. I had little to no idea what I was going to do with this piece of wood when I started filming the video. And that's the thing I love so much about wood turning. It's that you don't really need to have a plan. You don't need to have you obviously can have some sort of plan, but you can literally stick something in the lathe and start turning it, and with me, most cases, it will just evolve. So as I started turning this piece of Douglas fir, like Norse spruce, something like that, whatever Christmas tree we normally get. So I started turning it, and it was just chipping out all over the place. It was so soft, it was impossible to turn into anything. I can't even remember what my original plan for this piece was. So as I started turning it, obviously it started getting smaller and smaller, and I thought, I can't really get any, much smaller. There's no point me turning soon, and I didn't really, it takes quite a bit of time to take the thumbnail pictures, because they're what really makes the video, especially when it does well on YouTube. If you have a good thumbnail, you guys seem more interested to click on it and see what I'm making, especially if there's an element of mystery. So I didn't want to waste that time I put into taking the thumbnail picture and that, and starting turning this. So I thought, actually, if it's going to go really thin, why not turn one of the smallest things I could think of? I didn't want to turn a toothpick, because why would I do that? That'd be too short of a video. So I thought I'd turn a honey dipper. And obviously, as I say, I didn't plan to do that, so it just evolved as I went. So as I started turning this honey dipper, surprisingly the wood held together okay. I mean, obviously you didn't see this on screen, but this was actually, I had to attempt the honey dipper twice, because unfortunately the wood got so thin that it started to bend while I was turning it. So I had to scrap half of the piece, and started this one you're seeing on screen now. But yeah, it went really well. It held together and it looked really nice. It was like a really, really pale white, like an off-white colour. So yeah, I started turning that, and obviously finished it, and then I thought, well, a video can't just be made up of making a single honey dipper. So I thought, I've got to make a pot. So I grabbed a piece of American black walnut that I knew I had, and made one of the nicest pieces that I've made in a long time, that was just totally, evolving as I went. And as I say, I had no idea what I wanted to turn when I started, and that's one of the things I love. And the videos I like most is the ones where I go and I don't have a plan, I don't have a brief from someone. It's just me and a piece of wood in my workshop, and I can do what I want with it. But yeah, that says a lot about me. I love wood so much, and that's why I started wood turning, because for me it's just one of those materials that there is nothing else like it. It's totally unique. It's always got different character, even if you're turning the same species, it's totally different. Each tree is got its own characteristics, own grain, and it is so special. I remember when I first started having a passion for wood, I was visiting my granddad, who had a shop fitting business near to where I went to primary school, and I remember going in there after school, and looking at all the pieces of wood and asking him so many questions about, what's this species, what's that species, what's special about this bit, and often I'd look in his bit bin with all the offcuts and stuff like that, and I'd pick out some, and I'd end up taking it home and getting told off, why are you bringing a tiny little piece of wood home? But I don't know, it's just something to me. It's just looking at a piece of wood, and it really does tell a story. And that's the thing I love, and that's why most of my pieces, I really don't I don't actively sell them currently. I'm still working on a website, and I realise lots of you have asked for that for a long time. And I will get to that. It's just sometimes, you know, as I said to you many times, I work full time. So when I come home, I'd like to go out in the workshop and do as much turning as possible. But it's just another thing to fit in designing a website and also taking all the pictures of my pieces and getting them uploaded and things like that and shipping them out to you. I will get to it. It's just at the moment I want to get some videos sorted so you guys have got content all the time, because that's the most important thing for me. Obviously I love making stuff, but I also love sharing it with whoever's watching the channel, and I love to see the responses, you know, the amount of positive comments that, you know, that really make me feel good. So thank you to everyone that leaves them. Obviously there are some people out there that like to hate on it a little bit, but you know, that's the same with everything. And one of the comments I get a lot is why I use gloves. So when I started wood turning, I used to, well, when I started woodworking, wood turning, I'd cut my hands all the time. I'd go out into the workshop for a couple of hours, and I'd come out and I'd have a hole in my hand or a slash in my hand, and I'd always have plasters and things like that. And I just thought, oh, well, I'll wear gloves. And I know everyone comments, oh, you know, the first thing we're taught when we start these machines is, you know, never have overhanging clothing or gloves on. Oh, you're going to get sucked into the machine. Out of the hundreds of hours I spent on my lathe last year, there wasn't one instance of me being frightened that I'd potentially get sucked in and my hand ripped off. Now, I'd definitely say that I'm not gonna endorse wearing these gloves. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't recommend it. It's definitely your own choice. But for me, I see no issue in wearing them. But again, you know, if you're not comfortable wearing those gloves, then I see the reasons. Particularly if you're turning a big piece with lots of jagged bits, and then your gloves are all threadbare and they could pull you in, then yeah, fair enough. But in my case, they're skin tight, and they make me feel more confident that I'm not going to cut my hands. Yeah, some of the reasons why I cut my hands was a bit stupid. I remember this time where on my old lathe, to get the piece out, you needed to get the chuck off the lathe or whatever. You had to put a say about 8mm steel rod into this hole to lock the chuck. Now the chuck was stuck, so I needed to use the piece of metal that I normally use to get the chuck off in that little hole. Needed to use that to help me remove the chuck. So I put a drill bit in the hole. But for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to pull down on the drill bit, and that didn't work. So I decided to get a little mallet, and I hit the drill bit. It split in half, and as it fell, it ran itself through my hand and slashed one of my fingers. And again, that was a stupid thing. I don't know why I hit a drill bit with a mallet. It was just one of those, you know, when you're in the workshop, sometimes you want to rush through something to get it off the lathe or to get the next part finished, and I tend not to think at those times, and then that's where you get your issues from. And when I got all my new machinery, I got a brand new bandsaw, and you know, luckily I was sponsored by Axminster, and you know, they obviously supply me with them machines, and I paid for them myself. But I would say that they're a fantastic company. You know, they haven't paid me to say that. They wanted total honest feedback. And I'll always feature their links in my description of the videos of the tools that I'm using, but they are truly fantastic. But I got a brand new bandsaw when I got my new lathe, and my parents did say, you know, you need to tell us every time you turn it on, because that is scary. And you know, when it fires up and the blade's humming, you know how fast it's going round, and it is truly scary. So, but I think if you become scared of something like wood turning, then you lose the enjoyment of it. As I said, you know, earlier in this episode, and I do waffle on, it's just what comes to mind when I'm talking and watching these videos. But the thing that I love about wood is that it's basically a canvas with character. It's telling you, or at least for me, it tells me as I turn it what it wants to become. You know, what parts of it I need to show. And the thing for me, I love a piece of wood with issues. Because when it's got something that maybe people don't like, or it's got something that someone would cause someone to chuck it in the bin, then it makes me just want to turn it more. It makes me want to highlight those those issues, those imperfections. Whereas if you gave me a piece of wood that was perfect, there's so many possibilities of what you can turn it into that my brain just thinks and thinks and thinks for ages until I actually come up with something. So if you give me this piece of wood that's got cracks in it, or it's got, it's not quite straight, or there's a massive hole in it, then you're limiting my options. So I've got to quick, I've got to think about actually how can I get the best use out of this piece. And I just think it makes me work better. And I also, as an advocate for sort of using as little as possible and trying to sort of save the planet where I can. I know that lots of people like to comment that, these trees that you're cutting down, or these, all this wood that you're using. Most of the wood that I use is from fallen trees or trees that had to be cut down in the local area. Obviously, it's one of the most renewable, forms of craft, I suppose. Wood, we can grow it. Yeah, I do use some exotic timbers, and I actually use a tree planting app on my phone. So I try to sort of compensate for the timbers that I use from countries that, they're farmed, but unfortunately these trees do come down for crafters and wood turners. I do try to plant as many as I think I would have used, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I've used so little of this wood, and I've planted over 300 trees over the last year or so. So I definitely, hopefully, I've compensated for that. But no, I'm definitely an advocate for sort of climate change and saving the planet and using as little as possible. But yeah, no, I do have a massive passion for wood. And I'm going a bit off topic here. Honestly, I can't remember what I started saying. But I suppose that's, if you're still here and you're still watching, that's brilliant. I really appreciate all the comments you leave. But yeah, this piece of wood that I'm turning now is Zebrano. I wanted to put a little bit of colour just to make it less boring, but no, I think it does match. Zebrano matches really nicely. It smells awful when you're turning it. I remember the first time I turned it, stuck it on the lathe, and my uncle wanted something made out of it, and I'd got a piece in an off-cut bag, and I started turning it. It just smelled awful. I've never smelled anything as bad, in terms of sort of wood. You can compare that to this black walnut that's on screen at the moment. It smells lovely. It's really real fragrant wood. And I definitely like to turn it more. As I say, I like to use as many local timbers as possible, because I know where it's come. I know exactly where it's come from. I know, whether it's been fallen in a storm, or whether it's been cut down for a particular reason. But then often with timbers that I get in my local area, they can often be a little bit boring. In the southeast of England, we get a lot of ash trees, which is a lovely grained wood. It's just can be a bit white, a little bit plain. We get oak, and obviously English oak is fantastic. Well, all oaks are, but we have an abundance of English oak here, and it's just the best, or one of the best smelling woods in the world. It's golden brown, it's strong, it's hearty. And then we get things like sycamore as well, which unfortunately sycamore for me it's a bit of a boring wood. I would much prefer something like a North American sort of maple, or sort of big leaf maple or something like that, hard or soft maple. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode of me waffling on. Obviously you'll see the finished product in a second. Definitely let me know if you want another episode of these. If you want it more that I tell a story, or I just waffle on like this episode and say whatever's on my mind. I know that it could get a bit boring for people, but some people might be out there, they really enjoy me just saying what I'm thinking at the moment and just going with it. Obviously, I said before in one of the trailers that I do these all in one take, so I've just been sat here for the last sort of 15 minutes on my computer, and I haven't actually, any mistakes I'll keep in the video pretty much. And I just want it to be as genuine as possible, because that's what this channel's all about. I just want to spread my love of wood turning, and I want to inspire the next sort of generation and you guys out there that have been doing it for a long time. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know if you want another episode, and I'll speak to you soon.